Dude,
Yeah.
we're doing it. We're really doing it.
Sweet.
Sidetracked podcast. That's what this thing is called. That's what you're doing today. I won't keep you here forever, but we're gonna have a fun little conversation.
Beautiful.
So I'm here with Steve Ewing. A lot of my followers and a lot of people that'll be watching this are from St. Louis, and so they might be familiar with your guys with the Urge. The Urge's music.
Right.
You guys have a massive following here in St. Louis, and it was pretty big nationwide.
Oh yeah, we spent a long time, like a lot of years, just traveling the road. Once Receiving the Gift of Flavor came out, it was the one that went national.
Yeah.
We stayed on the road, so yeah, we were everywhere.
It's awesome, man. Yeah, I we just talked about it a couple minutes ago before we started recording and stuff, but I was a huge fan. I didn't want to make a big deal of it.
Sweet.
I didn't want to make a big deal of it at first, but yeah, man, literally one of my favorite bands. I was really young at the time, but my musical taste has always been kind of before its time.
Yeah.
To be honest with you, even now, most of the music I tend to listen to is a lot of stuff that I listened to growing up.
Oh yeah.
I just feel like music was better back then.
Yeah, it was a period of time where there was a lot of just new things happening.
Yeah.
The CD industry was massive.
Yeah.
The record labels were just spending tons of money on new artists, so there was just a lot of music out there.
Yeah, and it was good. I mean,
Yeah.
It was just, I feel like the music industry in the 90s, even before, obviously, that's way before my time, but I just feel like it was more based around talent. Like, if you were talented, you were going to be recognized more, and now I feel like it's a lot more about marketability. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, in the 90s, 80s and 90s, it was a little bit of both. Mm-hmm. But I think...
Bring the mic a little closer.
Okay. I think we had more of an emphasis on bands in the 90s. Rock music was still alive, you know what I mean? So right now, rock is not so mainstream.
Sure.
I think it'll come back.
Yeah.
But it was all about... It was rock music. It was bands, musicians. That was a big thing.
Yeah. The cool thing about you guys, especially, was just the fusion of multiple different genres into one thing that was just it was so seamless. Like, you guys had a little flavor of reggae and ska and metal, and it was just crazy, man. You just didn't really ever hear that.
No, you didn't hear it too much. There was a few bands that influenced us, like the Bad Brains and Fishbone, and bands that were doing all that kind of crazy stuff. And so, we never really went out with the idea that our music would get big or anything like that.
Yeah.
Because of the styles that we were doing. Mm-hmm. When it did actually kind of take off, we're like, whoa, this is crazy.
That's awesome.
I remember having a conversation with Dickie from the Bosstones early on. Yeah. We were out with them, and we were playing this place called the Ranch Bowl in Omaha. And it held 500 people, and it was sold out. It was packed. He's like, man, I would be happy just playing to 500 people a night for the rest of my life. And I was kind of the same way, so if I can do this would be awesome, you know. Of course, now, as you get going, things change. Your mind changes. The way you think is changing. But that was awesome. That was cool.
Yeah, it's amazing. Yeah, I've experienced, nothing like that. But the same thing just in business, where you kind of have a vision for something. And as you start to navigate your way through it...
It changes.
Yeah, it's never going to be exactly what your initial vision was. And your vision for it's going to change as you go. And
Correct.
It sounds like that's kind of how it went for you guys.
It is, yeah.
Which is really cool. You guys are all from St. Louis, correct?
Yeah, we're all from St. Louis, yep.
Did I hear this correctly, that there's at least a couple guys in the band that went to CBC High School?
Yes, Jerry and John, they went to CBC.
That's where I went.
Oh, you did? Okay, cool.
Yeah,
they're just only a year or two younger than I am, and they were in another band called Life Without Wayne.
Okay.
Good friends of ours, and we did a lot of shows together. When they broke up, or they were on a hiatus, we lost our original drummer, and we went to John and said, "Would you like to join the band? He's amazing."
Yeah, he is super
and he's
good.
so good. Yeah. So he joined the band, and shortly After that, our other guitar player left.
Okay.
And then Jerry, who's from his band, joined the band. So
Sweet.
Yeah, and those two were classmates at CBC.
Nice. Yeah, like I said, that's where I went. It's actually funny because I'm only 33. I'll be 34 soon. But so I would have been like, 8.
Something like that, yeah.
When I became a fan of yours, like, yeah, like when like washed up and stuff were like big like radio hits.
Right.
I was a kid, and
that's
so
cool.
And what's funny is I had no idea you guys were even from St. Louis.
Right.
It wasn't until I went to CBC. I don't even remember what year I was when somebody mentioned that. You know, a couple of the guys from the band went to our high school. I was like, "What the fuck?"
Yep.
I had no idea.
Yep.
And I had no idea you guys were even from St. Louis, much less that some of the guys went to the same high school as me. So, I don't know. I thought that was
well,
cool.
you know, like that's a good point because you were 8, so you wouldn't have had a chance to go see us.
No.
You couldn't go to a show.
I'm actually ashamed to say I to this day never have.
Yeah, so you would have missed seeing us.
Yeah.
And if you only heard it on the radio, you wouldn't know where the band is from.
For sure. Yeah, it's a strange concept because there's a lot of music that I listened to growing up. I go to millions of shows.
Right.
Man, slight exaggeration there, but I go to shows a lot. I go to tons of shows. But some of my favorite bands became some of my favorite bands as a kid that I'm still huge fans of today. I've never seen.
Right. Yeah.
Just because of like when I became a fan of them, there really wasn't that option.
Yep.
The Counting Crows are one of my favorite bands of all time. Obsessed with to this day, like obsessed with Counting Crows.
Right.
And I've still to this day never seen them.
A lot of bands like they quit touring.
Right. Right.
Like they'll have their thing, they'll have their day, but then after a while they stop being on the road. So,
for sure.
Yeah.
And they have still been touring a little bit. Obviously, with COVID, that's a little bit different now.
Right.
But before that, so my most recent ex, as a matter of fact, it was like our first date. We went to see Counting Crows, and it was I don't know if they considered it Rob Thomas or they actually called it Matchbox 20.
Right.
I think it was Matchbox 20. They played all Matchbox 20 songs. So,
it probably was, yeah.
Literally, like, it was like a last-second thing. Like, I knew that the show was that day, and I was
Was it
like,
this year? Was it 2020?
No, it was like, it would have been 17?
Okay.
It was a few years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, it was either 17 or 18. I think 17. Anyway, it doesn't matter. But it was like a last-second deal. They were playing at the amphitheater, which I'm not a huge fan of amphitheater shows, but you got to take what you can get.
In the summertime, when bands are doing it, they're so packaged on a lot of stuff. That's where you're gonna see it at.
Yeah. And I knew it was coming and whatever, and it was like the day of the show, and I was like, fuck, I kind of really want to go.
Yeah.
I go to a lot of shows by myself sometimes. Like if I don't have anyone that wants to go with me, I'll just fucking go by myself.
Yeah, there ain't nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. I love going to shows. To be honest with you, sometimes I enjoy going to shows by myself more than I would if I was with another person. But anyway, like her and I had kind of been talking a little bit, and I was like, hey, do you want to go to the show with me? And she's like, apparently, she didn't make this known at the time. It wasn't until later that she kind of told me. But she just kind of was like not expecting it and was like really excited about it. So she kind of like scrambled to like find she has kids, so she had to find like a quick babysitter. And she was like, give me 15 minutes to figure it out. I'm like, okay, cool. And so she ended up going, but we were like had to fucking hustle to get there.
Right.
And I like Matchbox 20, but Counting Crows was really why I wanted to go.
Yeah.
Well, Counting Crows they were like the first act. So we fucking literally got there right as they were finishing their set. Like we didn't even actually see them on the stage. So yeah, like
oh man,
I know. And there's like I said, man, there's so many bands that originated and were like had their prime, if you will, in the 90s that I'm still a massive fan of that I just haven't ever seen, and that was a huge missed opportunity. But
yeah, we don't have that central place where people find out what music is.
Yeah.
Now you look everywhere, and so there's a lot of good stuff out there, but it's not as central as it used to be.
It's not as central, but I think it's more accessible if you are looking for it.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah,
no doubt about that.
With the streaming services and stuff. I actually wanted to ask you something about that. Like, do you think that the streaming services have actually kind of rejuvenated the music industry in a way?
I think so.
For the artist, anyway?
I think for one for the artist, and for two as fans.
Yeah.
So it's funny. We were on the tour bus maybe a couple years ago. It was probably like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
And the Urge was doing some dates, and Carl was playing some new music, and I'm like, man, what is that? That's dope, right?
Yeah.
He said such and such and such. And he said, man, get on Spotify, and then it'll just keep updating you with like kick-ass music all the time.
Yeah.
And so to me, like, since soon as I did that, it's like, man, this is awesome, because I wouldn't go looking for that.
For sure.
There's no way I would go find that.
Yeah.
But it just keeps throwing stuff at me, and it knows. I mean, I'm not gonna like all of it.
Yeah.
But it's some good shit, you know.
Yeah, there's a larger abundance. Like, again, when I was young, it was basically like you had like the radio.
Right.
Like if it wasn't on the radio, it was really hard to find.
Right.
And then we got to a point where the music that was predominantly on the radio, at least in my opinion, was just garbage, most of it.
It starts to suck after a while, yeah.
Yeah.
You get like a good period where there's a lot of cool new shit.
Yeah.
And then you go through that period where it's just like they're just rehashing shit, or they're just trying too hard, or I don't know. That's my opinion.
Yeah. I haven't listened to the actual radio in years now, because anytime I've tried to do it, it's like, oh God.
Right.
You know, I gotta wait 45 minutes to hear one song that I actually like. But like you said, with the streaming services, everything is just right there at your fingertips. It's actually funny though too, is I catch myself just listening to the same shit over and over and over for that reason, just because you just have it. It's so easy. And if you like it, I don't ever change it, which I think a lot of people probably do. They probably diversify because they have.
You'd be surprised, I think.
Yeah.
People get set in their ways.
Yeah.
And you know how you make a playlist for, you go to the gym, or you make these playlists? Mm-hmm. They don't really change. I mean, you just keep playing the same playlist.
Dude, it's actually funny. So, okay, for a lot of you, I probably don't know, but, or maybe you do, I don't know, but Steve's a bodybuilder. How long have you been competing?
This is 4 years now.
Okay, cool. He's been competing for 4 years. He actually just hired me a couple weeks ago, and we kind of talked about a little bit of this stuff. But what was the point? Oh, that day that we met, I was like, damn, you know what? I'm gonna put on some Urge. I haven't listened to the Urge in a while, so I literally fucking listened to you guys exclusively for like 5 days straight. Never listened to literally anything else.
Yes.
I mean, I'm not even kidding though, dude. It's just so good. Not only is it like nostalgic for me, because when I became a fan, I was so young, and everybody loves thinking about like their childhood, and like it was just it's the most fun time of everybody's lives.
You got that right.
But it is just good music, and it holds up so well. Like, that's another thing, is some of the music I listened to back then, I think about now, and I'm like, why the fuck did I even think that I like that?
Right. And that's the same with music or movies or TV shows. You're like, oh, I used to love this TV show, and you put it on like, oh man, that's terrible. How did I like that?
It's so true.
That didn't hold up too good.
No, it's comedies are the worst. Like, it's funny how like trendy comedy is.
It is.
Because not like a lot of movies that were thought of as like the funniest movies back in the day, from whatever time period, they're just that brand of humor is just not really funny anymore.
And I got a teenager who just doesn't find what I find to be funny at all.
Sure, I can imagine.
Now check this out. You're gonna cry laughing on this one. Nothing.
Right. I can imagine, like, you've seen Step Brothers.
Yes.
I can imagine 20 years from now, somebody watching, like if I have kids or something,
right,
and I try to make them watch Step Brothers, because it's like, to me, it's one of the funniest movies.
It's funny as hell, yeah.
Yeah. I can imagine that being like, this is the dumbest fucking movie I've ever seen.
They probably would think that.
Yeah. That's probably what's going to happen in the future. That was just on TV yesterday.
Yes.
So I watched it, and I actually had this exact thought, because it's so damn funny now. Like, as a matter of fact, when I saw that movie in theaters, I didn't really get it. I was like, it was funny, but it was bizarre. I don't really understand what the concept was.
Right.
Then the more you watch it, the funnier it gets.
Just the two of them just being stupid.
Yep. That's literally, that's at that point especially, that's all it took.
Yeah.
Just put Will Ferrell and really whoever together, and you're gonna laugh.
Just
your
be
ass
stupid.
off.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure. So, as far as music goes, like, and again, this is probably from a time period where I wasn't going to shows and stuff. Like, what was the biggest tour that you guys did? Like, in terms of like crowd size, maybe the duration of the tour,
right,
or whatever.
That's hard to say.
Yeah.
Because they all kind of doing this together.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, we were just on the road and we didn't come off the road. But the first big tour we did was we were out with 311
Mm-hmm.
when their first record came out, when their second record came out, and
Way
then
back, that's like early 90s.
Yeah, so our record came out, and then we kept touring, and there was just one time when their third record came out, the Blue One or something like that came out, and it hit the radio and it blew up.
Yep.
And when we went out on that tour, we started seeing like some really big crowds.
Yeah.
And so that was cool. So instead of playing in front of 1,000 a night, we were playing in front of like 3,000, 10,000.
Yeah.
That was cool. And then when we signed our deal, we released our record independently.
Mm-hmm.
So Sony bought it, picked it up, re-released it, and Korn was on the label with us,
Nice.
and Incubus was on the label with us.
In their prime.
Yep, and so we started going out with Korn on tours.
Nice.
And that's when we saw
because they blew the fuck up.
They blew up like crazy, man. We saw some big crowds on that tour.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and again, like everyone that you just named, I was and still am a huge fan of.
Right. Yep.
Korn, some of their newer stuff is not my favorite, but they're back in the time period you're talking about.
Yeah, it was really good. It was,
they were bad.
And the shows were crazy, man. It was nuts.
Oh my god, yeah.
So it was always like, okay, so Korn would have a band like us. We'd go out, and then there was always a hip hop group on it.
Yeah, yeah. I remember they did the Family Values tour. I don't remember what year it was. Late 90s, I think. Like 99, 80, 98 or 99-ish. And it was like Ice Cube.
Yep.
That was with them. It was Limp Bizkit, them, and Rammstein and Ice Cube.
That was Family Values. I remember
Correct.
that,
Yeah, it was awesome. They did that. That was back when MTV actually, like, had music on it.
Yeah, because then you had all that coverage from MTV on the tour, man. It was huge.
Oh, yeah. I can imagine. That was a really cool time period for music. That, is that my phone? It is my phone. Jesus Christ. Why do I have an alarm going off? Let's turn that off. That's not going to happen again. Is anybody talking to me on here? I fought the urge to listen to this.
Yes.
That's hilarious. Oh, all right. Let me strap back in.
Word.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
I didn't even notice. You can barely see me, and I'm going to turn the phone a little bit.
Cool.
You know, it's my podcast. You got to see my face, dude.
That'd be a good idea.
Yeah, man. All right. We're back in. Evan, you got some editing to do, man. Anyway, yeah, actually, one of my favorite bands from that same time period, I don't know if you ever met them or played with them or anything like that, but Deftones, did you ever meet those guys?
Yeah, we played a lot with Deftones.
I figured you probably did.
Yep, so we'd either end up with them on a festival, like on Warp for a couple of years.
That makes sense.
Deftones played Warp a lot.
Yep.
So we would jump on Warp Tour and we'd be out with Deftones, or sometimes we just would end up on tour for a week with them.
Yeah.
Or there was one time where it was 311 and the Urge and Deftones.
God, that's like, no bullshit, that's like my dream show.
Yeah.
Like, even now, that would be pretty amazing to see.
And so, yeah, back then, all of us bands were just on the road all year.
Right.
So your agencies would just pair you up with who's out doing something, you know what I mean? So
sure.
you stay out. So we hooked up with Deftones a lot. Of course, 311.
Yeah.
And we'd be on festivals with everybody else, you know. So
For sure.
yeah.
Yeah, your guys' like biggest song, of course, "Jump Right In."
Mm-hmm.
That's I'm assuming
That was the biggest single release, yeah.
for sure. I don't think a lot of people know that like Nick Hexum he's in that song, correct?
Yeah,
He's
that's him
singing
singing the chorus part, yeah.
Okay, yeah. I don't think a lot of people realize that.
Yeah,
As weird as that sounds,
and you would know that like from the MTV era,
sure.
because you saw the
video.
music video.
Yep.
But if you didn't, you'd be like, well, I think I might recognize that voice, but
Yeah.
then it's so out of context.
Yep.
So it doesn't sound like anything like 311. So
No, but it made it cool.
yeah,
And it's funny too because to me when I listen to your guys' music or if I were to listen to their music, there is some kind of overlap in the style a little bit.
oh yeah, big time.
For sure.
Yeah.
Even though I don't know that your guys' genre, if someone was labeling the genres, I don't even know if you guys would be considered the same. Maybe you would. I don't even know what to consider you guys. Like
It's hard to say because we all had the same. Like we're all exactly the same age.
right.
Like Nick and Chad, and them, like we're all 50. We're all turned the same age. So the stuff that we listen to is the same.
Sure.
So we all have the same kind of like influences, just came out differently. But if you go out with any band for a long time, you can try hard not to, but some of their stuff seeps into you,
Yeah, I can imagine.
and so it goes both ways. So you start doing some things they do, and they start doing some things you do. It's just that's how it goes.
Yeah. It's like the algorithm before there was an algorithm.
Yeah.
It's like when you listen to certain music on say Spotify for example, it's going to feed you new stuff that you've never heard that's similar to what
Similar
you're
to that,
listening
yep.
to. And now you're listening to new shit that you weren't even aware of
Yep.
because of the similarities. It's almost like was organically happening with you guys through your own music.
That's exactly what was happening.
Yeah, that's pretty cool actually.
Yep.
I think that's awesome. Yeah, 311. I was such a huge 311 fan back then, and I mean that goes back even before I was even who knew who you guys were.
Right.
I was like a little kid when 311 first blew up because it was '95 that the album with
The blue one
alien.
came out. Yep.
Yeah, and so I was 8. I was 8
Yeah.
years old, and I was blown away. I loved them, and I
Yep.
still do, man. I'm still a big fan of theirs. But the cool thing is, back to the genre thing. I remember I was at work. I used to work at the Fitness Edge in Creve Coeur. I don't know if you're familiar with them.
I've heard of it, but I never went there though.
Yeah, it's just a personal training. It's not like a gym, like a membership gym.
Okay.
It's only personal training. They do an amazing job over there. But one of my coworkers at the time, I don't remember. I have no idea what the context of the conversation was, but he brought up the Urge and he couldn't think of the name, and he was like, "Remember that ska band from the '90s?" And I was like, Boss Tones.
There's a lot. Real big fish. Yeah. All kinds of stuff, right?
That's what popped into my head. And he was like, yeah, the Urge. And I was like, I guess there's like a little bit of that in there for sure. But I never would have thought of you guys as a ska band.
No, we never were really lumped into that category either. So, on one hand, it was a blessing, and one hand, it was a curse.
Yeah.
From a marketability standpoint, it was hard for the labels to be able to like, okay, this goes in this section, this goes in this. This is who we hit market wise.
I could see that.
So the cool thing about our label though is like that was their thing is we don't really care about that deal. We want stuff that goes beyond that. Like Korn, you wouldn't be able to like market them.
Right.
It's just kids like the shit.
Yes, I was those kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Limp Bizkit was that way. Like it was hard to really pigeonhole them in a specific genre, and they, same time period when they were big anyway. Yeah, there was a lot of stuff that had multiple different kind of genres built into one.
Yeah.
And if you could do that seamlessly like you guys did, I thought that was amazing.
That was fun.
Yeah, that's why to me, I think that's why it still holds up, because as your musical taste, if you're a real music fan, and some people really aren't, and that's fine, they don't have to be, but if you're a real music fan, your musical taste matures as you mature, and you start to open your mind to new stuff.
You start listening to more stuff, yeah.
For sure. And then that's like, you guys applied so many different things into your music that it's like, there's so many different moods that would make me want to listen to this.
Sweet.
Yeah, dude. You guys killed it.
Sweet.
Still are.
Yeah.
What was the most recent album you guys actually came out with, though?
We put one out called Galvanized, and I think that was 2015.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. I mean, I've heard music from it, but Spotify's just taking me on a journey. I don't really.
Yeah, we put that one out, and then we released a couple singles after that.
Yeah.
So, which I think is what we're gonna continue to do.
Yeah.
Is just release singles.
Yeah.
You know, maybe if we get enough to compile a record in the next year or so, or an EP.
Yeah.
But
that was my next question: is if you guys were planning on doing that.
We have a lot in the can.
Nice.
A lot of stuff in the can. Really, 2020 was the year we were going to release new music.
Yeah.
And when COVID hit, we're like, well, we can't be in the studio together.
Right.
You know what I mean? So we put that on hold. Everything just went crazy with everybody, so we put that whole thing on hold. We couldn't. There wasn't any concerts to play.
For sure. Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's a pain in the ass. Mm-hmm. It's been a pain in the ass for everybody. It's a pain in the ass for bodybuilders. It's a pain in the ass for everybody.
Yeah.
So,
oh, yeah.
Yeah, it just...
that was crazy, too, because we were prepping for a March show.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it April?
Yeah.
The NPC show was in April.
The Midwest?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, no, that's not happening. So it's like, we're gonna...
Dude, to be honest with you, I started prepping for that. I forgot already that I was prepping for that show as well.
Were you? Yeah.
Yeah. My off season last year was, I did not practice what I preached. We'll just say that.
Right.
I had a horrible off season, and so I was actually way behind for that show anyway. But so I was already pushing my date back before COVID. But
sure.
Yeah, I mean, then COVID screwed up the show that I did plan on doing a little bit later in the spring, and then
because everybody's like, oh, this is gonna be over by June. This will be done.
Me, man. I thought so too. That's exactly what I thought.
I was thinking the same thing.
Right. Well, because we've had shit like it. You know what I mean? We've had similar, viruses that have come out that I don't even remember which ones are from which years, but that's generally how it has been.
Yep.
Where it's just like a few weeks of like people panicking a little bit and then it being like, all right, never mind, we're good.
Right.
This, of course, was not.
This was completely different.
Completely different. And the fact that, the fact that it got so heavily politicized, it's hard to know.
That didn't help things at all, man.
No, it made things far
worse. It made things worse. Then you don't have any kind of streamlined idea of how you're going to actually deal with stuff.
Right.
It's just madness.
Yeah, it's and it's still a pain in the ass.
Yeah.
But it seems to be not coming to an end, but it seems to be doing a little bit better in terms of like knowing how to navigate how it's going to go from here, but whatever, it is what
it seems like there's a light at the end of the tunnel on this thing.
Seems like it.
Yeah because in business wise everybody is like, y'all have to do something because we got to get back to business.
Man. Yeah, and that's a good segue into Steve's Hot Dogs. Yeah. So when did you? I got a lot of questions about that.
Sweet.
Yeah. So when did that become? When was that an idea? Like, okay, I want to start selling hot dogs.
Probably. Let's see. Let me do my timeline here. Because when I moved back to St. Louis, I lived in LA for a while. Yeah. Moved back to St. Louis. Was really busy playing shows. I mean, I was playing like 200 and something a year. Just like regionally and locally.
Yeah.
So we were just real busy, and it was kind of getting worn out a little bit. And one of the things I noticed is like when we play like some of these strips, like with a bunch of clubs.
Yeah.
At the end of the night, they would just dump a bunch of people in the street, and there was nothing to eat.
Yeah.
And I told my guitar player, like, man, how come there's nobody out here feeding all these people?
Right.
Somebody had some food out here, they would make a mint. And so this was in like this was like 2009.
Yeah.
When street vending was nothing in St. Louis. No one was even thinking about it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to buy a hot dog cart. And Adam looked at me. He was like, what? And so for like the next year, I just kept throwing the idea at people to see what the reaction would be.
Right.
And people started like, man, you might do all right. So I'm like, well, it's a small investment.
Right.
So I bought the cart, and almost immediately I realized that selling food at night would be hazardous for one, and I could probably make more money doing lunch. So I did a bunch of research, and some of the best guys making the most money
Yeah.
were selling food in industrial areas at lunch because your crowd was every day,
Yeah.
and they knew you were there. So I did that. I was down at the Procter and Gamble soap factory.
Okay.
So it's mostly intramural truck drivers and factory workers,
Nice.
and that was great. That was awesome. Then that first winter hit. I'm like, this sucks because now I can't be out here making the money
Right.
doing this. So that's when we came up with the idea that we wanted a brick and mortar.
Sure.
And this was before Twitter and Facebook was there,
Yeah.
and that was awesome. But we didn't have a way to get the word out streetwise.
Yeah.
So we were using like text marketing, which came back around, which
Yep.
people are doing now.
Oh, I've gotten a couple today.
Yeah, but we were early on using text marketing,
Yeah.
and then gosh, when we opened the shop, Facebook was ripe.
Yeah.
It was like everyone had it,
Yep.
but there was no limits.
Right.
So you could post a picture of a hot dog, and maybe like 50,000 people would see it.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, when the algorithm was more generated so that more people would see it and be
Yes.
influenced to use the app.
Oh man,
That's
yeah.
like I don't mean to interrupt. We'll get right back to where you were, but like the TikTok app.
Yeah.
You said you have one daughter or
Just once, yeah.
one daughter, so she's how old?
She's 14.
She probably is a TikTok person. Yeah, everybody that age is, even
Yeah.
people, even older people. But the algorithm, like I have a buddy, for example, who I told he's got like 20,000 Instagram followers. He's got a pretty big following,
Right.
and he's just a big personality. And I was like, dude, you need to just get TikTok and just fuck around on there because
Yep.
you're funny and like
And it's wide open. Well, not anymore, but it was at one point wide open.
it's still pretty wide open though. Like he has went from 0 to I don't know now, but he's got more followers on TikTok than he does on Instagram.
Sweet.
He's had Instagram for probably 10 years.
Right.
And in 7 months, he exceeded his following.
Yep.
You know, I know a girl who's got over 1 million followers on TikTok and only like 30,000 on Instagram.
Yep.
It's insane. But
Yep.
yeah, so anyway, to get back to what you're saying, Facebook was ripe, meaning the algorithm was such that when you were posting things, more people
Yep.
engaged with it than they do.
So anybody who was a hustler at that time could use it and really get ahead of things. And so
Yeah.
people were like, what are you doing? I'm like, man, this is free.
Yeah, free, exactly, yes.
I cannot get any magazine or any television ad to do what this is doing, and it's free.
Right. It's crazy that at that point, people weren't really using it nearly as much for marketing purposes, which is like a huge miss. Even now, I mean, and that's the reason that the algorithm has gone the opposite direction, where you don't get as much engagement because they're trying to influence you to pay
Oh, yeah.
for ads. But even now, the ads are still a lot cheaper than they would be to do it any other way.
Awesome.
Yeah,
It's still the best money you can spend.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do very little of it in terms of paid ads.
Right.
But I do occasionally, like if I have something that I really want to put out there.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's the way to do it. So instead of just blasting people like all the time,
Yeah.
because they start to throttle you.
Mm-hmm.
Like get something really good, then hit, and then spend some money on that. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the way to do it. So
Yeah, I agree. That's kind of how I've navigated the marketing of my business
Right.
through social media. I do it all. I mean, I have a Facebook page, but Instagram's really where I get
Yep.
a vast majority of my engagement. Wonder how many people are engaging with this live video over here. I don't know. It's hard to tell. Can't tell from here.
yeah,
They used to get live videos on Instagram. Used to get way more. I used to do a lot of like informational stuff,
Sure.
training stuff, nutrition stuff on live videos, and I would get hundreds of people that would watch them. Now when I do them, hardly anybody even gets a notification to know that I'm doing it,
right.
and so not as many people view them. It's kind of a pain, but
Because it's a moving target.
it is. Yeah, it really is.
It's a moving target.
It is, and that's who knows where it's going to go from here.
Yep.
And they're constantly adding new features to it, like the the IGTV became a big thing where you could do long videos, longer videos anyway, more than 60 seconds.
Right.
And that was, the algorithm was such that they would kind of blast your IGTV videos so that, because it was a new feature, they wanted people
to see it and use it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Now that everyone's aware of it, it's back to like hardly anybody's seeing it. Yeah, man. And I like, that's actually the reason that I started, the main reason I started doing the podcast is because I was doing those live videos, and I just like to fucking talk.
Right.
I love to talk. And I have always felt like I've had something to say.
Right.
And so when I would do those live videos, I was just in my element.
Just go.
Yeah, I would just go, and people would engage with it. People liked it, and then I had so many people reach out, either directly on the live video, or they would come to me later and be like, dude, you need to do a fucking podcast.
Sweet.
Like, I would love to, if you did a podcast, I would listen to it.
And that's perfect because, like I said, you like to talk, and so that's what podcasts are, is getting there and having a conversation. Yeah, so that's perfect.
Yeah, man, I love it. Like, this is literally the first one, as I told you. You had the privilege of being the first guest I've ever had. But I feel like it's going really well. I think we're killing it.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, it's obviously all you. You're just fucking, making my job super easy. Well, I guess I should explain to the people about the sneakers, which a lot of people, pretty much everyone who's probably going to be viewing this knows me, of course, which is the reason that they're viewing it in the first place. Hopefully, I'll start getting viewers that don't know who I am, but they all know I'm a sneaker guy, and so basically, each episode is going to have a different pair inside the little TV centerpiece.
That's a lot of shoes.
It's a lot, dude. No, I'll show you
each episode. That's a lot of shoes.
I'll show you the room. It's right behind that wall right there of an entire room full. But I'm going to try to find a way to relate the shoe to the topic or the person or whatever. And so I officially became a huge fan of the Urge in 1995. So today we have displayed the Air Max 95, which originally released the same year as the album that made me a fan of the Urge.
Sweet.
So that's my relation of the shoe to today's podcast. But
they still look pretty fresh.
They are. Well, these ones, I don't know when these specifically came out, but that silhouette originated in 95. They just keep re-releasing them.
Right.
So like they're this weekend, I believe, is another Jordan 1 release. So it's like a brand new Jordan 1, but the original Jordan 1 came out in 85. So that's like Nike's thing, man. And that's part of what I want to implement on this podcast. Like, if you follow the Instagram page, my Instagram page for the Sidetrack podcast, there's just a lot of nostalgic shit on there.
Right.
Because I just love that. I love the 90s. I love my childhood, and thinking about the things that have kind of molded me into who I've become today that's just exciting for me, which is why it was really exciting to have you come on, because you, believe it or not, influenced that.
That's cool.
Yeah, but Nike has really done a good job of like grasping that ideology with their shoes.
Because people go crazy.
Yep.
People go crazy. You ever been to that store 23? Or whatever they call it, it's over in the Galleria.
Oh,
it's like a Michael Jordan store only.
Oh, yeah. They've actually changed that.
Oh, they did. Okay,
they did. It's a part of Foot Action.
Okay,
yeah, I go in there all the time.
You're like, what are you talking about? I'm there all the time.
Yeah, dude, I genuinely am there a lot. They changed it up though. That's like their whole. It's still all Jordan stuff, but it's like all women's stuff now.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm talking about like this year. They just did this recently. I was just there not too long ago, and they changed it all up. But it was literally just exclusively the Jordan brand, kind of as a part of Foot Action. But it was like an entire storefront of just Jordan stuff. Yeah, I've bought a bunch of shoes from there.
That place has got a line out the door like all the time.
Yeah, and that's the thing that it's kind of funny. Like the sneaker industry, somebody asked a question about this I did a questions thing on my Instagram story like a week or two ago, and somebody asked a question of like an unpopular opinion or something that I had about the current state of the sneaker industry, And that's actually something that I pointed out. It used to be where, and it's still to a much smaller extent, is still this way, but when like a high profile shoe, let's say a Jordan shoe would be released,
Right.
there literally used to be a line like all the way outside of the mall. At the minute that the store opened, people were there to purchase those shoes, and now with social media and all these different apps and stuff, it's completely changed. Where
So I guess you could just buy them and have them shipped, I guess, or whatever.
And so the big releases, let's say they're releasing 750,000 pairs nationwide of a new Jordan 1. I don't know. This is completely hypothetical. You have to go on Nike's sneakers app, and at the exact second that they release, you have to click buy, and there's almost no opportunity, and that's if you want, they'll sell out that second, literally. If it's a high enough profile shoe, if it's a shoe that's got enough hype behind it that many people want it.
Wow.
The problem is these guys have created like bots that have like hacked the system to where they're just resellers that don't even actually give a shit about the shoe. They'll just buy as many pairs as they can possibly get, and it makes it almost impossible for everyone else to get.
That's what's probably driving that nastiness. Is those bots and stuff, whatever.
For sure. I mean,
then they jack up the price up from what you would have paid.
Yeah, tell me about it. Yeah, I mean, it's literally like they'll do a release at retail for $160, and 1 minute later you can, if you didn't get them on the sneakers app, which you most likely won't, they're already $3, $4, $5, depending on the shoe. As much as over $1,000. Depends on the shoe.
Good God!
I know, it's insane, but the alternative to that, which was the big problem.
People fighting each other and shooting each other for shoes and shit.
Fucking got murdered over shoes.
I was thinking the same thing. Like, at least people aren't shooting each other for shoes and shit.
Right. Now they're just cussing each other out. And they don't even know who they're cussing out because it's not even a real person.
Right.
Yeah, it's insane, man. It's crazy how quickly things change with technology.
Yep.
Some of it for the better, some of it for the worse, but
you can't stop it.
No, there's nothing you can do about it. It's just going to get even crazier, and it's going to happen faster and faster. It's like sci-fi. It's literally...
The tech curve is like this.
Yes. Yeah. It used to kind of just be like this, and it's already on its way to this, and it's not stopping. Won't stop. I mean, I even consider myself relatively tech savvy. So I mentioned that I went to CBC. I went 2 years at the old campus in Clayton.
Okay.
Where, the guys from the Urge went.
So you actually still went at the new place out?
I went 2 years in each.
Okay.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. I was like a unique class that got the same amount of time in both campuses.
Nice.
Yeah, they did a lot of like kind of market research with a lot of people from my class, because they wanted to know like what did you like about the old campus versus the new, and blah blah blah. But at the new campus, it went like very, very technological, like way ahead of its time. We all had laptops, and we were spoiled little bitches. But so yeah, like I'm not dumb when it comes to technology, but I'm going to tell you what, putting together a fucking podcast by yourself, it shouldn't be this hard. Like there is no reason why this shit should be so complicated.
Yep.
Like no bullshit. I was at Best Buy this morning. Because there was like one more thing that
you got to get something else.
Yeah,
you got to get something else.
Fucking splitter for the headphones.
I'm surprised there isn't some company that's selling podcast packages.
So that's starting to happen. So I basically did. So these microphones, these headphones.
Yep.
There's a couple other things. It wasn't everything you needed, but it kind of was like if you're starting a podcast, here's like a starter kit.
Okay.
But it still didn't have everything. There was still quite a bit of stuff that I needed to get, especially, and then it's a little bit unique because I'm also obviously doing video.
You're doing videos with it as well, yeah.
Yeah, so that's totally different.
Yep.
But determining what camera I was supposed to use, that's been a huge pain in the ass.
And if you're not doing all of it live, if there's any post-production...
Right.
then stuff has to be synced up,
For
and
sure.
it has to be So that's where shit gets crazy.
That's the stuff that's where I am completely clueless. And
Yeah.
so I got a guy that's helping me out with that. Thank God. It just kind of worked out. It's a pretty cool story. His name's Evan. He's a friend of a client of mine, and he's a nutrition student. He's getting his master's in, I guess, nutrition science or
Sweet.
something along the dietetics, something along the lines of that. And he needed to do an internship as part of his curriculum, and so he reached out to me about doing an internship with me, and I was like, man, I would love that. It sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I just don't know what the fuck I'm gonna have you do.
Right.
You know, I'm doing
Yeah.
people's diets. Like they're paying me for me to do their diets.
Right.
You can't do diets for me. I train clients. My clients don't want you to train them. They want me to train them. So there's just not that much for me to have you do. I was like, what I really honestly need is somebody to help me with like post-production stuff for my podcast.
Cool.
And he was like, his exact response was just a link to a podcast. And I was like, what's this? He's like, this is my podcast. He's like, I've been doing a podcast for 2 years and I know how to do all the shit you need me to do.
Perfect.
I was like, you're fucking kidding me. So
Perfect.
yeah, it worked out so well. If it weren't for that, we wouldn't be sitting here right now.
Right.
Because I don't know how to do any of that stuff.
It takes a minute too to learn like post production on stuff like that.
Yeah. So you mentioned this the first time we met. You're doing some producing yourself, right? Music production.
Did for a long time. So
Okay.
right after the Urge broke up, we broke up in like 2002, something like that.
Yeah.
What during the period of making the record, the Too Much Stereo record, I was learning production
Yeah.
as we went along, and just got really into it, and then got really good.
Yeah.
And so after the band broke up, I started just doing demos in LA and things like that, and got my chops really good. And then when we moved back to St. Louis, actually probably a few years into that, I just started actually traveling and producing records.
Nice.
And so I got to a point where I was doing like 6 or 7 records a year.
That's
like
awesome.
full-length records. And so that was cool. And moved back to St. Louis, started playing a lot, and then started actually doing some production with bands around the area.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So I know nothing about music production.
Mm-hmm.
So like, is that something where you would work with people from specific genres, or is that just anybody?
I was pretty much doing rock bands,
Okay.
like some singer-songwriters, mostly like bands wanting to like get that big rock sound that I was familiar with. So I was mostly doing rock bands. Yeah.
Sweet. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. So you said, I didn't know that you ever lived in LA. I actually wondered. Mm-hmm. I actually just had a conversation with my dad about this on, I guess it was New Year's Eve. He was talking about like what differentiates somebody who's just like talented and like locally accepted from a band that like really makes it. And of course I don't have the fucking answers.
Sure.
But for me it was almost like an easy answer for me was like, well, it almost doesn't matter how fucking talented you are. If you live in St. Charles County and you're performing around St. Charles County, your opportunities for getting really big are almost, correct me if I'm wrong, like almost impossible.
It's smaller, so you either got go where there's more people, or hit the road.
Yeah, for sure.
So
but hitting the road would entail like people wanting to actually see you.
Yep, and so you have to have everything kind of going together. And the more times you play, you go into a city and play in front of 100 people. Mm-hmm. They heard about you, and then if you kick ass, then next time you come back, like a couple months later, there's 500 people.
Sure.
And so that, it works like that too.
So I see that a lot. Now that you say that, I see that a lot with, I'm a big metal fan. I'm a big fan of all different genres, really. But, which is, again, one of the main reasons I'm a big fan of the Urge, is because you kind of implement multiple in one.
Right.
But I've always been a huge fan of, like, metal, heavy stuff, really heavy stuff. And one of, like, the sub-genres of metal called hardcore, you see a lot of that. There's not really there's really no mainstream hardcore bands.
Nope.
There never really has been.
Nope.
It's kind of more. It's almost kind of like punk rock, like real punk rock,
Yeah.
where it's all kind of. As a matter of fact, a lot of if you talk to hardcore bands, a lot of their influence comes from punk, real punk, not Blink-182.
Sure.
So that's not what I'm talking about. But you see a lot of that where, like, a lot of the shows I go to were at like Foo Bar.
Yep.
And some nights you'll go there and see a hardcore band, and there's really like 80 people there.
Yep.
70, 80 people there. And then, a different hardcore band would headline a different time, and they'd be there again, except the crowd's a lot bigger. And the next thing you know, they're headlining those shows with a kind of a packed house. Now, again, small venues, but there's a big difference between 50 to 80 people and 400 and 500 people.
Yep.
And, but I love that, man. Like, that's, the intimate venues is where I like to be.
That's where bands learn how to get good.
Yeah. I'm sure.
That's where you learn how to get good. It's like we got to knock these people out.
Yeah.
In the small area, and there's no fluff to it. It's just we gotta be good.
Yeah.
Period.
Do you think if you've played? I'm assuming you've played some bigger like amphitheater shows or no?
Lots of them. Yeah.
Okay, so my question as an artist, as a musician, a performer. My assumption would be is if I would prefer to play a more intimate venue. Is that your experience or?
I do.
Yeah.
It's two different things. Mm-hmm. So you learn how to work a crowd in a small venue, and you learn how to work a crowd in a big venue. And in a shed, it's different.
Yeah.
Like you can play a small arena. It's still indoors. It's different from playing a shed because it's outdoors and half the people are over there, or like even the people in front of you are still kind of far away.
Right. Yeah.
So it's different, so you don't get that immediate, you don't hear it right away. So you just have to just work it a different way.
Yeah, it would seem that you wouldn't be able to feed off of the energy of the crowd as well if you're at a big...
You don't.
Yeah, I can't imagine.
So even coming down to how you write the set list...
Yeah.
You have to take into consideration that you're playing to an audience that's a little further away.
Yeah.
And they can't mosh or they can't go crazy on the dance floor because they're in seats.
Sure.
So you have to rethink the whole how you're going to write the lists. Yeah.
Dude, it's funny that you say that because that's a lot of my... So, like, I grew up with a lot of people that were fans of obviously the same music as myself, my brother included, and my brother's been in some local bands. And as kids, we just thought moshing was like the coolest thing.
Yeah.
I never grew out of that.
No.
Dude, I'm 33.
Yeah.
I've been as much as 295 fucking pounds. And I just can't get enough of it. Like that's why I like going to the fucking hardcore shows because they're intense. Like people really get out there and beat the shit out of each other.
They do.
And I love it. I don't think I'll ever grow out of that.
We still have a lot of old motherfuckers out there trying to act like they're going crazy. It's funny. It's different now because, like when we played, like somebody like a place like the pageant.
Yeah.
I'll stuff it, and we'll hit that first song, and the place goes ape shit.
Yeah.
But it used to be you could go ape shit for 90 minutes straight.
Yeah.
And the crowd would be there with you, but now the crowd needs a break.
That is amazing. That's so funny.
They need a couple minutes.
Shit, I mean, I'm getting to that point. Like I said, for me, it really depends on what part of my bodybuilding season I'm in.
Right.
If I'm a little leaner, I could go a little longer.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been to some shows when I was heavy, and fuck, man, it's to talk about cardio.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's God, but I can't get enough of that shit. I don't know why. I've never grown out of that. I remember I went to a show at Pops, right? Yeah. Are you familiar with? Have you ever heard of the band Meshuggah?
Yes.
Yeah, they're one of my favorite bands. So I mentioned earlier your guy's drummer. I'm a drummer myself. I'm not a good drummer, but I have played drums since I was a kid, and I'm a big fan of. I still watch tons of videos. I consume tons of like YouTube shit with a lot of these YouTube drummers and whatever. But Meshuggah's they're known for their percussion and their odd meters. And
Right.
Crazy. So I'm a huge fan of theirs. But I went and saw them at Pops, and I was with my brother and some guys that he's been in bands with. They're a little older than me. My brother's younger. My brother's 2 years younger, but some of the guys he's been in bands with are, they're in their 40s and whatnot. And we were kind of all there at the same time. And then the band that actually, this is kind of off topic, but the band that opened for Meshuggah, I had never heard of them, but now I'm a huge fan. They're called Animals as Leaders. I don't know if you ever heard of them.
I don't think I heard of them
They're
yet.
a little more abstract, but they're literally just, they're two guitarists that play, I believe they're 8-string guitars.
Oh, shit.
They have more on the low and on the high end, and these guys are just like, I think they come from classical backgrounds.
So it's just like...
Yes, it's insane. It's insane. It's literally, there's no vocalist, it's just them.
Oh, okay.
And then the drummer, the drummer's a fucking virtuoso. So they're just playing this off the wall.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah, it's insane. Like, the talent is just, like, it'll blow you away. But it's not like, they're not heavy enough to where people really get intense and start moshing and shit. But I was kind of just sitting there like, wow, holy fuck, who are these guys?
Yep.
But then anyway.
Pops is a good place for a show. Pops is a place that will put that show on.
Yeah.
Like the pageant might say, yeah.
Right.
Or some of the other venues might be too small.
Sure.
Pops is the place.
I've seen Meshuggah, I think, twice at the pageant, and the bands that they've paired them with at the pageant are completely different.
Right.
They're bands that actually have a bigger following, but their genre is a little bit. It's just, as you know, like, metal is not metal. It's not just one thing.
No, big time.
There's so many different kind of subcategories of it, and Animals as Leaders was like a really good pairing with them because the abstract time signatures and just uniqueness.
That's super tight. Like,
yes,
yeah.
It sounds exactly like it does on the album. Basically, the amount of notes these guys were playing. It's like, how the fuck can you possibly do that over?
So, have you ever heard of The Gorge?
No.
They're from St. Louis, man. If you like that, if you like Meshuggah, you would love The Gorge.
I will definitely look into that.
The Gorge is the shit, yeah.
Yeah, I'll for sure look into that today. Anyway, the point I was getting to is when Meshuggah came on, and then there's obviously recognizable songs, and then the reason that the whole crowd was there, it was a big crowd. I left the group and immediately rushed to the middle of the pit. Yeah, and just started fucking people up. And my brother was telling me after the fact, he was just like, we all kind of just watched you and looked at each other like, God, why does he like this? I'm like, man, I don't know.
That's just me.
It's funny because, and this is actually another reason I wanted to do this podcast. So, social media has obviously consumed all of society.
Yeah.
And my entire purpose for my social media has been to promote my business, which, of course, bodybuilding, fitness, personal training, like that little niche.
Right.
And so a vast majority of people who, quote unquote, know me via social media, and they think of me as Marcus the bodybuilder or Marcus the coach, the fitness guy, the bodybuilding guy. And that's like so far from really who I am.
Yeah, that's what they know you because that's what you've promoted.
Yeah, that's what they see. That's really all they have to see. And so it's like, I get fucking tired of talking about bodybuilding all the fucking time.
Yeah,
I'm tired of talking about training. I'm tired of talking about nutrition. I can only tell you how to do a fucking bicep curl so many times before I want to blow my brains out. And don't get me wrong, I love it. I'm still as passionate about it as I've ever been, especially from a coaching perspective. There's nothing I love more than helping somebody achieve their fitness goals or their, winning a show or whatever their goals might be. I love that. But there's other shit that I like to talk about and discuss and think about and consume and whatever. And so, like, if you look at, like, my Instagram search page, there's, like, no bodybuilding on there.
Right.
Like, I hardly even follow bodybuilders on social media because there's just so many other things that I'm interested in. And so when I had the idea of doing the podcast, I was like, yeah, it's not going to be a fitness podcast. I don't want it to be a fitness podcast. Like, will that topic come up? Obviously.
Yeah.
Of course it will. But that's not the main purpose of it,
Right.
And so for me, it was just like, I want to talk about whatever fucking comes up, and if I can have some cool people come on here with me that can kind of guide the conversation based on their experiences and what they've done and cool shit that they've done and seen and whatever, that's what I want to do. And it's actually funny because I don't know, I may or may not have told you this when we first met, but I had the idea of starting a podcast. It's probably been over 2 years. It's probably been close to 3 years ago if I had to estimate my exact time frame on it.
Right.
And the idea was not to do a fitness podcast or a bodybuilding podcast or whatever. And your name kind of popped into my brain. I was like, he's here. He's local. I know some people who know you. We haven't even gotten to that topic. We haven't even gotten to that discussion yet.
Right.
But I know some. We have mutual friends basically.
Sweet.
And so I was like, he'd be easy to access anyway. It'd be cool to get him on the show because I was a huge fan of The Urge, and we have some cool stuff to talk. We would have some cool stuff to talk about. I didn't even know you competed at that point, and then I found out you competed. It was Lisa Mudge. Lisa.
Oh
Mudge?
yeah, no, Lisa. Yeah.
Lisa contacted me. I don't remember. It was probably 2 years ago, maybe.
Okay.
And had mentioned that you guys were friends and that she was going to try to refer you to me for coaching, which she never followed up and I never heard from you. It was just
And
whatever.
I think she probably did.
Yeah.
And I was just like kind of whatever in my own thing, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, she competed years ago.
Sure. I prepped her for one show.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sweet.
She's awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, like when she told me she was going to have you reach out to me for coaching, I was like, holy shit, he competes. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Then it was at the most recent show, the whatever they called it, Central USA, which is basically the NPC Midwest that they renamed because they moved it because of COVID. You came out to pose, and I think you were posing to jump right in.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Ann came out. Ann was the MC, and she made some comment about posing to your own song, and I was like, I had seen you compete before,
Right.
and I didn't know that it was you the first couple times.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And then I was like, wait, what? That's fucking Steve. Okay.
Yeah.
It's really funny how that all kind of just worked out. And then when you did reach out, I was like, oh, well, this is going to be too easy to get on the podcast now.
Yes. Yes.
So, yeah, man, that's it's just cool how that kind of stuff works out.
It is. It's crazy.
It really is. So, but whatever. I mean,
yeah, but maybe like 5 years ago, I've always tried to keep myself in shape because you got to play music and got to be in shape.
fuck yeah.
And then I've always been like just fascinated with bodybuilding.
Yeah.
And then I don't know if you know Phil Schifo.
Yeah, good friend of mine.
Phil was working out at this gym, and I was talking to him about it. And he's like, "Yeah, you should do it."
Yeah.
And when he said that, then it's like, click.
Yep.
He says I should do it. I think I can do it. So
Yeah, Phil's an awesome guy.
yeah, it feels great.
Yeah,
so.
him and I worked. We were coworkers at Complete Nutrition years ago.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah, so we've always kept in touch. He's a really cool person. Mm-hmm. Good, very good physique too. He's got an amazing physique.
Yeah. And so he's like, "Yeah, you should do it." Like, all right.
Yeah, you basically answered my next question, which was what got you into bodybuilding. So
Yeah.
So you were just basically training and
I was training away,
yeah,
and then I had gotten pretty lean,
yeah,
and Phil was like, and I said, you bodybuild. I've always wanted to do that, but I don't know and how to do it, and
right.
And so I said, you can do it. And so I just kind of started looking around, and those guys were doing the natural show.
Yep.
And so I'm like, well, let me do that one. It's a small show, and I can learn some things. And
Yeah, it used to be right down the street.
yeah, that's where I did it.
Yeah.
It was right there.
That was the first time I saw you compete and had no fucking clue it was you.
Yeah, I did it right over there, and man, let me tell you, I had the best time.
Yeah.
It was really fun, and the whole process of eating and training, and just learning stuff. I liked it. So
Dude, I'll tell you what too. the way you did it, I wouldn't recommend for everybody, but it's how I did it. Like I got into it entirely on my own. I didn't hire anybody.
Right.
I just was like, fuck it. I'm gonna do. I like you. From the time I was like a little kid. I'm talking like since before I even have memories. I was like obsessed with muscularity. Like I would look at like, when we would go to the grocery store with my parents. I would be in the magazine section looking through the magazines, the bodybuilding magazines, because I was just fascinated by
I'm the same way. Yeah.
massive individuals.
Yeah.
And I always wanted to be big, but I was I played college basketball. I was a basketball player, so you can't do both.
Yeah.
You can't be big and play basketball.
Correct.
It just doesn't work. And so, like, I always had this desire to get fucking huge, but I wasn't able to ever actually do it. But when I started, the point I'm getting at is when I started, it wasn't even as common back then to hire coaches. A lot of people did it on their own. And so for me, I didn't even know that people had coaches because I was completely clueless. Social media wasn't anything like it is today, so there wasn't a lot of access to what other people were doing.
Right.
So I was like, yeah, I mean, I'm just going to like diet and keep training, and I guess I'll do more cardio and I'm gonna do this show. At the time, I was living in Evansville, Indiana, and there was a small show right there in town that the owner of my gym was the promoter for. So I was like,
cool.
This is all kind of aligning. I'm just gonna do this. And so
maybe you grab some tips from some people or that you meet, or you know, yeah.
And next thing and I actually won my class. It was a really weak show and a really weak class, so I kind of got in over my head thinking I was really good.
Right.
It really wasn't. I kind of sucked. But then my next show, I went and competed in L.A. and my eyes got opened really quickly to how bad I actually was at that time. But I continued doing it on my own for a few years.
Sure.
Well, shit, for me, I guess it was like 7 years before I really hired a coach and did it that way. But the process of doing it on your own, it's like trial by fire. Like you have to learn.
You got to learn. Yeah.
There's no other option. Otherwise, you're going to look like shit.
Yep.
And get up on stage and make an ass of yourself. So yeah, I learned a ton by doing that.
Yep.
As I'm sure you've done the same.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's invaluable to me. I think that's the most valuable aspect of the sport in my experience. Is that I just did it all on my own and had to learn everything from scratch rather than.
Yeah. That's kind of how I am with everything.
Yeah.
It's like, well, let me figure it out.
Right.
First. Let me give it a shot first.
Yeah, well, I'm never going to claim that I was a musician. I never was a musician.
Right.
But I can play multiple instruments. I'm not good at any of them, especially now because I never play anymore. But I never took a lesson. I never took a drum lesson. I taught myself how to play the guitar or the bass, shit like that. I never took any lessons. Again, I never got good, but I also never pursued it fully. I had too much going on with basketball and stuff to where I could really dedicate enough time to actually get good.
It's practice, you know what I mean? So it's,
sure.
Maybe you can learn some stuff lesson-wise. You can learn a lot.
Yeah.
But if you were passionate about it and you practice a lot, you would get good eventually.
Yeah. I think that's how it goes with anything.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you have to just try stuff and be willing to suck at it for a while.
Yeah.
And then practice to the point of being really good.
Yep.
And then, even at some point it might be good to kind of outsource information on how to take it to the next level. Because that's where I was with bodybuilding, and it sort of sounds like you're in the same boat where you've maybe kind of maxed out what you're going to be able to do on your own.
Yep.
That's where I was.
Yep.
Like I'd looked pretty good. I'd won my class a couple times, but it was like, if I'm going to get better, I got to have somebody else tell me what to do at this point.
Yeah, I keep hitting the same wall.
Mm-hmm.
Like where we were talking before her, where you might look really good a few days before or a few days after. It's just keep hitting the same wall, basically.
Yeah,
so.
the peaking process is super complicated, and that's where you really have to have an outside. So it's so hard to be objective with your own physique. Even if you know what you're doing. And that was me. Like, I know how to peak other people. I'm really good at peaking other people. So I can apply the same methods to myself. But looking in that mirror and being objective about
Right.
what I'm seeing with myself is almost impossible.
Yeah.
No matter how good or how much experience you have, like doing that on your own is, you can do it, but it's really, really difficult.
Right.
But yeah, that was the boat that I was in. It sounds like you're kind of in the same
Yeah.
one.
But the process I love. I love doing it. So.
That was another thing we talked about too.
Yeah.
The first time we met was and this was something where we really aligned, and I think it's really cool, is the process of competing. You hear a lot of other people talk about it, and they're like, man, I was just so fucking tired all the time. It's like, I'd go to work, I'd come home, I'd go to the gym, I'd do my cardio, and then I had nothing left.
Right.
I'm the exact opposite.
Yeah.
When I'm in prep, when I'm regimented like that and like fucking killing myself on low calories where my body is not even fully fueled to do all this,
Yeah.
I actually feel better. I have way more mental clarity.
Yeah.
I'm happier. I am so much more productive in other areas of my life. My house is cleaner. It's insane. I don't know what that is. I can't really wrap my head around it.
Yeah, I don't know what it is either. I call it the sweet spot.
Yeah.
Where there's a period where you just have a lot of energy.
Yeah.
And you're not eating as much,
Right.
but for some reason you have a lot of energy. I don't know what that is.
I don't either. I mean, this is like, I'm considered an expert in this field.
Right.
I've been doing this for over a decade. I've prepped hundreds of people for shows, and I don't have an answer as to why I feel, and I'm sure there's other people who can relate to this. I just think it's unique that you and I both do, that I feel better during that process. When I'm in a calorie deficit where you're literally already, just from training and doing cardio, based on the amount of food that you're eating, you're in a deficit. So you're burning significantly more than you're taking in.
Yeah.
And then you have to have enough left to do whatever else.
Your job.
Yeah. You literally, your job, just the shit you got to do around the house.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. And I'm like exponentially better at all those things when I'm in that process.
I think it's partially where you're at in your head too.
Yeah. That has to be, yeah. I mean, the mental aspect of it definitely is a definite component of it, but physically too. It's just, maybe it has something to do with the consistency of the regiment,
right?
Or just you have to be pretty organized in order to, because like, for example, right now, I'm in off season right now, and so like, if I have too much shit, like if I'm running around all over the place getting shit ready for this podcast,
right,
and getting all my stuff done with my clients and training my clients that I have to train in person, and then the next thing I know, it's 11 o'clock at night and I haven't trained yet, I'm like, well, I just won't train today.
Just, yeah.
But if I'm in prep, it's like, fuck it, I guess I got to train at 11 p.m.
Yeah.
And lucky for me, I have the gym here in the house, so I can do that. And
that is cool, yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty fortunate to have pulled that whole thing off. But yeah, it's like in prep, you just don't have a choice. Like, you have to be more organized. You have to be more regimented because there's no option.
You got to think ahead.
Yeah. Maybe that has something to do with it. I don't know, because I'm not like I'm not a great planner.
Right.
And I think when you're
forced to.
Yeah.
Yep. You got no choice.
I think that's definitely the case. Man, it's funny that we both relate on that, because I don't think a lot of people do. I think most people are kind of the exact opposite of that.
Right.
But I don't know. It might have something to do with kind of the entrepreneurial mindset. Like, it's like your personality type, I think.
Yeah, because you find yourself in some pretty hairy areas. Just starting a business or keeping a business running, you're working crazy hours, you're doing, so you're already kind of in that shit.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that might be something to it.
It's got to be. Like I said, it just, there's no, I don't know that I'll ever have a detailed explanation for why that is. I think it really does just come down to the individual and their personality type. And yeah, man.
Yes.
Yeah, so, shit, I think we've covered as much as we really need to cover.
Sweet.
Yeah, I think we've done enough. Unless you got more shit you want to talk about, I could do this all day.
I'm good.
Cool, man. It's been fun. I'm glad we
Sweet.
did this.
I'm really glad we did this.
Yeah, if you got anybody else that that you think would be cool to talk to, you can send them my way.
Okay.
Definitely.
I'll throw some musicians your way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Music is definitely one of the things that's had a huge impact on my life. It always will.
Cool.
And it doesn't matter what type of musician they are, what genre, whether they don't need to be famous. They don't need to. You know what I mean?
Right.
I can talk music all fucking day.
Cool.
It's a blast for me. So yeah, man. Well, it's been fun.
Yes.
For sure. We'll probably do it again sometime. You know.
Oh yeah, we got to.
Yeah, I think definitely. I'll be better at this at some point. This studio will end up looking cooler.
Yep. Get more stuff. Yeah.
You know, get more. Still a learning curve to this whole thing for me. So, but I think we killed it.
Yes.
I think we fucking killed it. So, anyway, everybody that watched, I appreciate it. Steve, it's been real. I'll let you get going. We'll go get you some Seidel nutrition stuff. We'll get you some swag.
Get some swag. Yeah.
Cool. All right, that's it.
All right.